Welcome to the Lazy Girl Library, the podcast where reading is a pleasure and captivating adventures happen from the comfort of your couch. I'm your host, Darby.
And I'm Michaela.
And if you've ever spent more time rearranging your bookshelf than your priorities, then you, my friend, are in the right place. Okay, welcome to episode 3. That is crazy that we're now recording our third episode.
No, it's kind of going by super quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting though.
Yes. Also, I want to say hello to England and Singapore. You heard that right. We have 2 people that are listening internationally to Lazy Girl Library, and my mind actually can't comprehend that.
When I saw that, I've freaked out just a little bit. So hello, international listeners.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. Michaela, how's your week been?
Oh, it's been pretty good. Kind of busy wedding planning and whatnot, but you know, we're getting through it. So not a whole lot of time to read, which has been sad, but c'est la vie.
I feel the same way. I haven't read too much this week because at work we had like an all-staff gathering, which is like a fancy way of just saying like, it's almost like a mini conference. We just did a 2-day of our whole office meeting up, like talking about everyone's roles, where we're at, because we're halfway through our fiscal year. So exciting.
It's exciting.
But it was fun. We did some like personality test things and how we work together as a team.
I love a good personality test. Whether it's the Enneagrams, all of the astrology, Myers-Briggs, you send me any of them, I love them.
Yeah, I'm not a big astrology person because I feel like mine doesn't go with me. But then my sister's really big into astrology, and she's like, no, but the rising one, I don't know, tells me that things do match me, but whatever.
It's all for fun.
Yeah, it is.
Don't take it
I
serious.
am a Enneagram stan, though.
Yep.
I am a type 2 through and through.
And I'm definitely a type 5. And a Virgo, if anybody wants to know.
Aquarius. I don't know the other ones, but I'll ask my sister if you want to know. Awesome. Well, so today we are doing a bookish topic. So we're not actually talking about a specific book, but in this episode, we're going to be talking about our icks and ahs, which is a fancy way of saying our favorites and least favorites about different things on books. So what we like and dislike about characters, authors, writing styles, tropes, book covers, just reading in general. And then also our March book club, for those of you who want to know and read along with us, is going to be 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. So this is the first book in the Firebird trilogy. It's a YA science fiction type of book, and I've actually read it. But I read it years ago, so I don't remember everything, but I do remember that I liked it. So
I'm excited to get into it. I haven't read, like, a YA sci-fi in a really long time, so it sounded intriguing. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I think it'll be, a good one.
And we'll read the description for the book later on in the episode, so for anybody intrigued about it, you can learn a little bit more later.
Yeah. That will be what we talk about next episode, but let's get into this episode.
So, icks and ahs, what are they? The definition, according to the internet, of an ick is a point when your initial attraction to a person flips into a feeling of disgust or dislike. So, it's been really popular, I feel like, on TikTok, people talking about icks. They're typically associated with, relationships, but a lot of people have, branched out and talk about different topics with icks.
Yeah.
Hence the kind of inspiration behind this episode.
I don't know where it came from, but I first heard icks on Love Island UK. I'm a big Love Island UK, so whenever they're talking to a guy and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I got the ick. And I just don't see it anymore. So that's what I associate when I see icks, but it is definitely trending now everywhere, I feel like.
And so then our own definition, because what's the opposite of an ick? I don't think it's as popular out there right now. So we created our own, and we called it the aw, because it's instead of an ick, we were like, ew, it's like, aw, cute. So our definition would be a point when your initial lack of interest to something or someone flips into a feeling of interest or giddiness. So it is. It's a fun way to describe what makes things more desirable, less desirable, and we're going to get into it for reading specifically.
Yeah, I see you wrote an example down of what an ick would be. Someone chewing with their mouth open is an ick. And that is such an ick. I know it's not about reading, but oh my gosh, I'm very sensitive to sounds and smells.
Oh,
and
yep.
Well, my mom is very, very sensitive to smells, and now I think, like, I'm getting that from her.
Uh-huh.
Like, Justin, my husband, has a candle, and he likes to, like, light it when he is playing video games. It's kind of cute. It's, like, his own ambiance.
Aww.
But I hate the smell of it. So,
No.
like, whenever I'm home, I'm like, I gotta blow it out.
What's the smell?
It's literally like a nice smell. It's like a sugar cookie or something. He got it at a market, but I think there's like caramel in there too, and so it just is very thick and heavy, and I'm like, ugh, I can't breathe.
Yeah, I can't do too sweet, both with like taste and with smells, like anything sugar cookie, vanilla-y. Like if it's a subtle, like mixed with something else, I like it, but yeah, all the caramel, anything like that.
Yeah.
Nope.
A couple weeks ago, I was sick, and my nose was really runny, and then he lit the candle, and it got even worse, and I was like, we can't do this.
So oblivious.
Yeah. So that was a very good example of an ick.
Thank you. All right, so do we want to get into them?
Yeah.
So I guess we can start off with like characters, Icks and Ahs. So I'm thinking we'll start with Icks, go into Ahs, end on a positive.
Sure. Okay, I feel like some of these are going to be hard for me to describe, and I also want to make a note at the beginning of this episode that I'm sure all of these icks, or just about all of them, could be ahs for me at some point if it was written correctly or in a way that I liked. But
Absolutely.
stereotypically for me, these are icks. But again, I'm sure I would like them in a different setting, maybe.
It's all situational.
It is. But okay, some character icks. This is kind of taking me back to our last book, but a main character that is like, woe is me, life is too hard, but literally has like no issues. Like, you're fine.
Yeah. No,
Life's hard for everyone, sweetie.
Right. It's kind of like having that one person that all they do is complain about their life. Like, yeah, everybody goes through ups and downs, but if there's still positive somewhere, and if all you're hearing about is the negatives, you're just like, ugh, want to move on.
Yeah. And then I don't like a character when an author adds a character that doesn't add to the story in any way. Like, there are definitely good side characters that they're not tied into the whole plot, but they're still adding to the story. But when an author just throws in a character, like, just because they want another character in there, it's like, why are you here? Like,
what's the point?
Yeah, I don't want to have to use the mental capacity to remember the character, but then I don't even need to remember them because they're not going to be brought up again. Like,
right.
I don't know. So that's just like, is an ick.
Yep.
And then also the I'm different character.
Yes.
So I, like, 2013, like, indie film, like, I'm so different. No, you're not.
Yep.
You're basic, and that's okay. Like, be basic. Or if you are different, like, you don't need to brag about it. Like, it's cooler if you don't.
That is 100% one of mine too, and I love her name's Delaney Rowe on TikTok.
I know exactly what you're talking
at
about.
Delaney Says Hello. Shout out to her because her impressions of, she calls them like the insufferable whatever main characters.
Yes.
Are chef's kiss. They're absolutely perfect. She nails them down beautifully, and they do. You're watching them and you're just like, oh, it is. It's such a physical, like, ick for me. I can't handle it.
It's bad.
Yeah. No, not fun.
What else are your other icks?
I hate when characters have no flaws. When it's like, they're like, oh, so perfect. It's just dull for me. I love a good character with, like, character development. And you want to, like, it makes them more relatable. And so if the character is just, like, always perfect, has no flaws, a good example of this for me, not in a book, but in a movie, I feel like Captain Marvel in their first movie had this kind of
Oh, yeah, she's an ick in itself.
vibe about it where it's just like there's nothing wrong with her. It makes it harder to relate to them, and you're just kind of like, it makes it boring.
She's so insufferable. Why'd you bring her up?
I'm so
just
sorry.
kidding.
I knew we were talking about Icks,
I know, I'm kidding. I get that.
So I can't. When they pretend there's just like nothing wrong with them, it turns me off entirely.
Yeah, I would also say the opposite of that too. Someone, well, I guess that goes back to my, like, woe is me. Like,
Right. You need the balance.
or, like, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like you
can't have too much baggage, but like you gotta have a little baggage,
right?
Because we all do.
Absolutely.
It's just like a carry-on. Like we don't need the checked bag of baggage. Yes. But just like a carry-on.
We keep it real.
Yeah.
I like that analogy though. Yeah, that's good. Another thing is when they're like too focused, like for specifically love interests, when they're too focused on the differences between them, and that's why they can't be together. Like, we can't be together because we're from two separate worlds. When it's like clearly the romance is working.
Yeah.
Like, why? Mm-hmm. Why are you putting that out there for yourself?
The problem is you.
Exactly. Because it's like, I don't know, it just drives me up a wall, and that's all they focus on, especially because it's always towards like the end of the book when it's like the big like breakup part of it all. And it's like a made conflict instead of like a true conflict, because they're just scared about the relationship in itself instead of like recognizing that they're scared about it. It's like, this is the excuse of it's just not going to work because of these things. Oh, no, I hate that.
And especially when that is made to be like the plot. Like, oh my gosh, like,
it's too much.
I don't want to read that.
Like, I don't mind a little bit, like an Aladdin kind of thing, you know?
Yes,
the Street Rat Princess, but then... But they still, it works. It's
again, it has to be written the right way.
Yes. So this is another one is like, it's like 50-50 for like character versus like writing style. But when a character seemingly blows up out of nowhere for like absolutely no reason, or gets over an issue that is a really big issue so quickly, like it was absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Like, it drives me crazy because it's like, you're reading something, and then all of a sudden, they're, like, furious and blowing up out of nowhere over anything, and you're like, so confused, because you're like, where the heck did this come from? Trying to find out, like, where that conflict started, because it was so small to begin with, like, from the reader's perspective, that all of a sudden it became a huge part.
Do you have an example of this? Or even if you can think of it in, like, a movie so you don't spoil a book? Or like
in the book, it's called My Dark Romeo.
Okay.
It's like I don't want to say it's a mafia. It's kind of like a mix between a billionaire's mafia type of book, romance. It's like an enemies to lovers too kind of situation.
Okay.
I don't know who it's by, but she would be like infatuated with the main character and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere she's just like, I hate you, you're the worst, you're keeping me from my friends and family, blah blah blah, and you're like, whoa wait, but like 2 pages ago we were falling in love with this guy, where did this come from?
Yeah
That drives me insane. Or like the opposite, when there is really like a big conflict that happened and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person did this, but then the character writes it off like it's absolutely nothing, and you're like infuriated, you're like, what? This is huge. Why would you? Ugh, I don't like that.
Okay, yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's not fun.
Yep. My last ick too is when
making me laugh.
This is a caveat one. Large romantic age gaps. But this does not apply to fantasy.
Exactly.
If we're talking about romance or any other type of book, when there's a large like age gap, it's weird for me. I know this is a very personal one.
No, but I echo it. I feel the same way as you.
It's just weird for me to read, like, when you're dating somebody that's, like, so much older than you, or so much younger is, like, even worse for me.
Because you're immersing yourself in the book, so
Absolutely.
It's like you are trying to feel the feelings that main character is feeling, and so then when that super older or super younger person's introduced, like, you're like,
it takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Because, like, you immerse yourself in these books regardless of the genre, and so, it kind of, like, takes you out. It's like the record scratch kind of thing, where you're like, it takes you out of it entirely, and you're like, oh, no, I don't know if I could read this. But I will say, I think the only reason it doesn't bother me as much in fantasy is because, like, in A Court of Thorns and Roses, like, these fae males are, like, 500 plus years old. Meanwhile, the main female character is, like
20
or something. But I think because it's so outlandish and they're written very much like they're the same age, it's easier to, like, overlook it versus, like, some other books where, like, the age gap is truly like a plot point, and so there is no getting around that or pretending that it's not there.
Yeah, I feel like it works in fantasy because they're old, but only in the sense of like they're wise and they've had their hardships. Like that's where some of their baggage comes from, is like the time that they've spent before they knew the female lead.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it's so outlandish of an age too, because it's fantasy. It's all made up. That
they're fairies.
Exactly.
It's not real.
It's so easy, yeah, because it's not real, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
It's not real, so it's easier to just get around it than like some of these others. Ugh, yeah, that one is a hard pass for me.
Definitely. Now, ahs. What are some of your ahs for characters?
Like I mentioned before, like I love character growth. So I love a flawed character, and watching it doesn't even have to be like a redemption arc, but just seeing heroes with character flaws and then villains with redeeming qualities. I think it makes a very complex character for me. And it's more relatable because nothing is ever black and white. We live in a grayscale. And so to see that grayscale within characters, I think helps you live in that or relate to them more. Yeah. In that sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I also really love a good comic relief character who is well-timed humor, because I think that's very key, and it's not just thrown in randomly and it doesn't make sense, kind of like what you said, like when other characters are just written in and they have zero addition to the plot. So they need it has to be like adding to the story. Yeah. But if it's timed perfectly within like serious situations, it can add to it and kind of like give you that comedic relief in a serious moment, but not detract from the fact that it's still a serious moment.
Yeah, I also put down a side character that adds either like banter or like flirt, like something that, especially in the fantasy books when it's like a serious situation and it's like they're almost like relieving tension.
Absolutely.
Like, I like that.
Exactly. Another one, I love a self-aware character. My two examples, gotta bring it up, Sarah J. Maas, Nesta and Aelin, because I love hearing the internal monologues. And when I say a self-aware character, it's like when you see them from another perspective doing something that's really frustrating. Like how Nesta is so mean to everybody in the book and is just like so cruel sometimes, but then you go into her perspective and you see the internal struggle and how she doesn't want to be that way. She doesn't necessarily know why she snaps the way that she does, and she's trying to work on it internally. If you only got one side of that, then you're only seeing the one side of her versus like knowing like from her perspective she is self-aware on it. You get kind of like more in depth with the character and you learn about like why they do things the way that they do, and like their motives behind things, which again goes kind of back into like character growth and like development. I just love a good dynamic character. So those, whenever I get to see that, and like even if it's things they do things that you don't agree with, just like learning their why, I think helps you really connect with them more in that sense, that you still don't necessarily agree with it, but you understand it.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I also used a Sarah J. Maas character as one of my ahs. So Aelin as like a female character that seems like, you know, she isn't super serious or like doesn't really have everything all together, but literally like everything's figured out and like surprises people with like solutions and like saving the day, like and stuff like that. Mask, yes. And like I like sometimes knowing it, and then I also like being surprised myself with it, of like, oh my gosh, wait, you talked to that? Like, when did you talk to that?
Oh,
like,
oh, she got me so many times too throughout that series.
Yeah. So I like that. And then I like how do I explain this? Mainly, well, I guess it could be guy and girl characters, but just someone, again, a lot of Sarah J. Maas characters are very, like, determined, but they still have lots of wit. So, like, whenever it's a serious situation, like they feel like real people, and I like that.
Absolutely. I think a good, like, non-book comparison for this is, like, the OG Marvel versus DC. And we're talking, like, Marvel before Endgame, because new Marvel that's a whole new story.
That's another ick.
But if we're talking like original, like popular Marvel versus like the DC movies, I think that's what made them so popular is because they had that kind of character like wit to them and the balance of the seriousness with the like comedic relief. And so it's not so heavy versus like some of the DC movies can be really, really dark and they don't have that balance.
I agree. Definitely OG Marvel because now it's the opposite and now it's too much wit and like comic relief and there's like, this is not a superhero movie anymore.
Which goes back to the balance of it all.
Yes. But I love characters who have those like values and morals but then can still have like fun and like a little flirt. I like it.
We love the banter.
Yeah. All right, going into author and writing style, Icks and ahs. For me, one of my biggest icks is when spice overshadows the plot. I don't want the plot to be the spice. I want there to be an actual plot. Everyone loves some spice, but like sometimes it's just too much. And so I skip a lot of spice sometimes because it's like I don't need that. Like, that's not why I read it. And obviously sometimes when there's romance books, like it's a little different. But even then, like I don't want the spice to be the romance, like the whole plot. Like I want there to be something else that brings them together.
Absolutely. I think my rule of thumb on that, like regardless of the genre, is if you can take out all the spicy scenes and there's still a really good book and a really good plot there, then it's a good book for me. Because, like you said, it like if the whole plot is all these spicy scenes, which is not to say, I mean, we have a friend who loves that too. But it's not to say that that's a bad thing. It's a personal thing. But for me, I need the story. And so, if it gets too much into the spice.
For sure, to each their own, which is so cool about books. Like, you can get out of it what you want. But for me, that's not what I want to get out of it most of the time.
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
that can be an ick. And then this kind of plays into that, but also not only regarding spice, but when an author is sometimes, like, too descriptive. So definitely in spice, I'm like, I didn't need all that. Sometimes when it's, like, too much. But then just in general, when an author is being, like, super, super, super descriptive of, like, the paint on the walls was eggshell white, and then you looked down to the carpet. So I'm like, okay, speed it up a little bit. Like, paint me a picture, but I don't need to know every piece of furniture that's in the room. Right. So sometimes that can be like...
It's all about purpose for me. If there's a purpose that I need to know why the walls are eggshell, then tell it. But if it's all just more for the world building of it all, then let's move it along. That
is such a good way to put it. I wholeheartedly agree with that. You just like read my mind when I didn't know how to speak. That was so good. And then when a book is moving at a disastrously slow pace, oh my gosh, like, I want to be in a world where, like, let's have fun. Like, I want to be in there. And sometimes when it's moving too slow, I'm like, okay, this is feeling a little too much like real life. And that's not what I want.
It starts to feel more like a chore to read it than, like, the enjoyment of reading it. And you only have so much free time, so why would you want to, like, force yourself into it?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I think my final author writing style ick that I thought of is when a plot isn't really resolved by the end because... Again, going back to, like, romance, like, the couple turned into the main point. Or for some other reason. But that was just, like, the example I thought of. Like...
Where it's, like, the relationship is the plot. Yeah, I agree. And it's all situational, too. There are some people that can do it really well and still make it a compelling story. But most times, for me, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. So. Or just when, like, the initial main plot, like, just doesn't turn out to be the main plot and then it's like disregarded. I'm like, wait, but that's what I wanted to know.
If you want more of our thoughts on this, go back and listen to episode 2.
Basically, I'm still stuck there. Ick.
No, I agree. For my icks, just to like kind of expand on your spicy one, when they use spicy scenes to hide plot holes or to hide like the lack of plot. Which is like kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about, but I feel like that gets used a lot too, where maybe they're just throwing it in there because it's popular right now, it doesn't fit with the story, or they ran out of ideas and so they're like, here, everybody loves this, to detract from like a well thought out story. I can't stand that.
Like, girl, take your time writing. Like,
there's no rush.
Yeah, no rush.
At least not from us. I mean, publishers maybe, but... another one, in a mystery books, mystery specifically, If it's too predictable and I figure it out right before like halfway through the book, then like why am I reading it?
Yeah.
Because I get that and some books can be predictable, a lot of like romances, but you're kind of, it's like the expectations. You're expecting that a little bit when you're going into it versus a mystery. Like I want that gasp and awe moment at the end when it's revealed and you're like, I didn't figure this out. And for me, sometimes I do figure it out, but if it's just later and like closer towards the end, that's okay because I feel smart at that point.
Yeah.
Like I figured it out before the end. But if I figure it out too early, then it's like, if I know what's going to happen, why am I even going to bother reading the rest of it? Because the whole point of reading the mystery is to figure out what happens. So
that would never happen to me. Except I did, in The Silent Patient, I did figure out that one.
And I didn't, and that was amazing.
Wild Twilight Zone.
I love that book.
Yeah. If I was a thinker during books, then that would be an ick for me too. But I am lost in the sauce when I'm reading, so I don't care to
It's a mild ick, but it is still an ick for sure.
Oh, no. Based on your reading style, like, that it would definitely be an ick. Like, yeah. You read the story, basically. Right. You know what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that was like Verity by Colleen Hoover was one of those books for me that I couldn't. I mean, I know it's popular, but it's not even that it was bad. It just, I figured it out and like, I'm not even going to bother wasting my time anymore.
Yeah.
Because time is precious. I hate a lost plot line too. This kind of goes back to our last book club book, but it's even more frustrating when the book has the potential. Because it's like you can see the story yourself as the reader, and for some reason the author just isn't seeing it too, or maybe they lose sight of when they started the book, and so you lose that initial plot line, and therefore I think you lose your reader.
It's like unintentionally like dangling a carrot. Like, oh, this is what you want?
Right.
Like, sorry, like,
Exactly.
we're doing bananas today.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And so, it is really, it's frustrating in general when you're reading a book and you just have no idea where the plot is going. It's all over the place. But I think it makes it even more frustrating when you see that potential for it and it just loses it.
Yeah.
And then kind of tying into that too, it's like when the ending feels like an afterthought or like the author just got bored and left the ending to the book to be done like last minute or just wants the book to be done. So they're like, okay, this is it. Done.
Icebreaker.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That one I was like, are you kidding me?
I wanted to
know gosh.
More. I want
like,
to...
that was the ending?
Exactly.
No.
And it's like it's again like your carrot analogy where it's like they're dangling the carrot and you're like following along and you're so excited and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, gotta go, bye.
Yeah.
Like, wait. But it's so unsatisfying and it's so like lazy and it's so frustrating.
Especially because a lot of the times those books are good books and then you're like, wait, but why didn't that what? It's like you dropped the ball at the last second. Like everything was good until
it's like Game of Thrones syndrome where they like bring you along throughout all those seasons and beautiful storytelling and then all of a sudden the directors get like a bigger gig so they're like, all right, we're gonna wrap this up real quick and then they lose everybody. It's so infuriating to me. Lastly, I hate when a book feels like disjointed. And again, these all kind of weave together into the same things, but I just have a hard time like seeing where the plot line is going because I feel like it's too sporadic. It gets too branched out into different places. And you're like, wait, where did this come from? Or why is this relevant? It loses me. And then it's like, if I don't know what's going on, then I'm kind of lost and I don't want to finish.
Yeah, sometimes that gets me when like a new POV is introduced or a new character and they start getting added. Sometimes that can feel disjointed to me, but that like a lot of times they like end up like adding to it, but definitely in the beginning when something like that happens, I'm like, ugh.
Absolutely. But what are your ahs though?
Sorry, I'm gonna say that every time.
I love it.
Okay, I do love multiple POVs, so I love getting like both perspectives, especially when it's like a big cast of characters. When there's a lot of characters, it's like, I don't know what all of y'all are thinking. And it just like, that's when a book is really going to crush you at the end because then you really do feel like connected to them. But I love that. I love a multiple POV.
Yes.
When they're well-written characters.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's good. And then I think everyone likes this when you're shocked or surprised by something that happens, especially when it happens at the end of a chapter.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because that's just going to keep me reading. Or if like I have to put it down, I'm like, oh, I'm for sure reading this after work or as soon as I can.
And then it's all you can think about all day, all night until you can go back and pick it up again.
Yeah. But like books, that can make me like giggle, gasp, cry, like when it causes me to have physical emotions. Like, I love that. And then also a side character that has, again, a purpose, we kind of touch on that, and grows into a main character. So someone who might be introduced and you're like, okay, cool, another little character, someone's little friend, but then slowly over time, like, you're like, I love this person. Like, I am rooting for them. I hope they're in more scenes. And then they become it. Like, absolutely. So good.
I think it's fun, too, when it almost seems like they start off truly just as, like, a side character. And then the author almost falls in love with them, too. And starts writing more and building them more, too. And so it's like, not only are you growing more connected, but it feels like the author is, too, with them. Yeah, I love that.
It is nice. Like, it can be so well done. Like, having that side character, the intention is, like, they're not the main character, but then it's just, there's so much love, and, like, they come out of their shell, like, oh, it's so cool. It's so cool.
Intention is definitely a key theme in this episode.
Yeah.
Some of my awes, we kind of touched on a lot of them, but my...
All of reading weaves together.
Yeah, it really does, but my big one being the overthinker that I am. I live for a hidden plan that as you're reading like the book, you see like the plans like coming together, but then all of a sudden you get to the end and you realize that there was a secret plan underneath all along. And then you get to like, and they reveal, it's like the big reveal of it all.
I love that.
So good, because then you learn about all the different connections and it makes you go back and think about everything that you read. And it's especially well done when if you can go back and reread, you can see all the different points of the big plan throughout it if you know. But when you don't know, you just see like maybe like the overarching generic one, and then you find out about the big plan in the end. And so when you think back, you can see it all coming together. Oh, that big reveal gets me every time.
That reminds me of how I read Thorn of Glass definitely not in the correct order in regards to Assassin's Blade, which I read last. Why? I don't know. But when I was reading that, I was like, oh, I don't know what all of this is going to play into.
No, I love that. Yeah, the Throne of Glass series does a fantastic job with it. But another book that does an amazing job at this is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I really hope I pronounced her name right. But that series, it's a duo. I forget what the second book is called, but the first book is Six of Crows. That does a phenomenal job with it as well, where it's like kind of like a heist fantasy. And so you see the heist coming together and going through, but then at the end there's a big reveal and so fantastically done. I can't talk about it anymore, otherwise there'll be spoilers. But I highly, highly recommend if you love a big reveal like I do.
Yeah. All right, added to the TBR.
Another thing that I love is when fiction books make you think outside of the their fictional world. So when they have like real world applications to things.
Oh yes, I like.
And it like when you finish the book, it really like makes you kind of think about your own life and how these certain aspects can come up. So like another good example is Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which was an old book club book that we read as well. It's kind of like the butterfly effect, or how, one decision can change the course of your life and the trajectory of it entirely, and all the different lives you could have had based on the decisions that you make. It's not like in a bad way, it just kind of makes you think too, like, what are decisions that I've made throughout my life that I could would have led somewhere different. And so it's intriguing to think about. And so I love books that make you kind of think outside of the book once you finish
and definitely them. Fiction ones where you're not going into it with those intentions, but then they just write a character so well, or with such real issues, that you're like, oh yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
I actually understand what you're going through, or like, oh my gosh, wait, I didn't know that. I kind of feel like this as well. Like,
yeah,
it's cool.
It almost connects with you a little bit more than like a self-help book where it's like you're expecting that going into it.
Yeah.
So it's the unexpected of it that kind of almost hits home a little bit more. And so I love a good fiction book that can do that. I'm also just such a sucker for a captivating story. The writing could be, maybe it's not the most eloquent writing there is, but if there's a good story there, then I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Now, what about tropes? These are, I feel like, become so popular and so talked about on TikTok.
Yeah, and I don't feel very well versed in tropes. And, like, sometimes I hear trope, like, names or titles, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So, forgive me, because this one might,
We're dabbling.
Yeah, we're dipping our toes in.
We're testing the waters here a little bit. I do think that they can take over.
Yeah, but the tropes that I know, like my Oz, like I know I do really like those, but I don't think I know all of them enough. So there are probably some that I don't know about that I could make an ick or an awe. But of the ones that I can think of,
we could do a rapid fire.
Yeah. So icks, I don't. Also, my icks again situational. Like it has to be. There are ways where I would like it, but I don't always love a grumpy sunshine, like in a lot of books. And I don't know what it is about it, but I think maybe because I'm such a positive person just in life that sometimes, like, I'm like, oh, like, you're not making her have a good time. Like, I'm not having a good time. Like, why do you got to bring it down? Like,
right.
I don't know.
It kind of goes back to, like, your character ick where if there's, like, too much baggage or, like, they're too negative about it.
Yeah. So sometimes grumpy sunshine doesn't work for me. I'm going to throw in there possibly billionaire romances because, as I talked about last podcast, I've only read 2 of them, but neither of them hit. So, I don't know. Maybe that one's going to be an ick for me. If you have recommendations for billionaire romances that y'all think I would like leave a comment on our Instagram, Lazy Girl Library. But
trending downwards right now.
Yeah, for sure. And then also, this might be a hot take. But sometimes found family gives me the ick.
Interesting.
I know. And it's a weird one. But I think because sometimes, and this goes back to my character icks, but sometimes I feel like it can be like, oh, woe is me. You're like, this is my family now. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, I get it. Like, these are now your friends and you like them and you didn't like your family. So sometimes it can be like a little unbearable when that's like the only...
Taken too far.
Yeah. So sometimes I can just get the ick where I'm like, okay, I get it. You just didn't have friends before, and now you have friends. Like, because sometimes it's not realistic what they're going through. Right. And so the fact that they're like, I am so seen now. And it's like, no, you were seen before, but you just were choosing not to.
Or, like, they completely write off their real family. And when it's like, the real family might have flaws, but they still have redeeming qualities, too. But it's like, too bad because I have found my true family.
I agree. Yeah. So sometimes... Again, don't know if that's hot takes. I feel like a lot of people really like found family, but sometimes I'm like, it's not for me. Or in this book, I don't like it.
I get that. For me, pregnancy trope.
I didn't even know that was a thing. What is a pregnancy trope?
It's like from my understanding, at least the way that I view it, is it's like whether it's unexpected pregnancy or just like when the main character gets pregnant to further the plot, but sometimes it's not done to further the plot either. It's just kind of, I don't know, when a character gets pregnant, not for me. And it's not that I have a problem with being like parents in books either. So if there's like a single family kind of thing, or a single parent with an existing kid that's already introduced into the book,
like
that's
works.
easy. It's like the expectations it's set, and like, okay, I can do this, but it's the thrown in pregnancy that then you're now introducing. Like, it makes it too real. It takes you out of it into the real life. And I'm like, no, I don't like this. And
that's a new ick for me as well. Didn't know about that one, but...
no, it's not. Because you get... And I understand it because it's, again, it kind of is like a character growth in a way. And they're entering a new stage of their life, maybe, if it's done the right way. A lot of times it's not. But sometimes I'll give the benefit of the doubt. But it takes me out of it. It's too real, and I don't like it. Not for me. Also, I think this one goes without saying, but the cheating trope.
Yeah.
If it's, like, second chance after that, where, they, get back together after, nope, can't do it.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't know if I've really read any cheating tropes, though, so I don't know if I can comment. Because there's a tiny, tiny little, like, dot in my mind that's like, that sounds interesting. I kind of want to read that. So I don't know if that would be an ick for me. I don't think I've ever read one.
I haven't read a true one because I just avoid it in general.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's one of those that I don't necessarily want to read.
It's not like a happy thing.
Yeah.
Like,
but I feel like, I don't know, we'll talk about it. We can talk, I'll give you some books that maybe you can try out. They give you a little dabble. But my big one is instant love tropes. I can't stand it.
When they're, like, obsessed from the get-go.
Yeah. I hate it. I hate it so much.
I do too.
It's an instant, like, cringe ick for me. Like, I could physically feel it in my body just as I'm talking about it right now. Mm-hmm. I need the tension.
Yeah,
I need it's not even that it has to be, like, an enemies to lovers, like, I hate you. Just that, like, sexual tension of, like, will they, won't they? Like, I need that push and pull between them and the... You know, like, is it gonna happen?
No one is that
moment?
amazing that you're gonna instantly be... I mean, well, maybe... No. I'm standing firm. No one is that amazing that you're just like, I'm dropping down right now. Like, marry me. Like, that's not a thing.
No, and I can't stand it. I need the tension. I need the build-up. I need the... It's such a satisfying release, too, once they finally do, like, come together. And... why would you take away that serotonin from me?
No, yeah. No. This reminds me, one time I went on a date in college. I think it was my freshman year. I went on one date with this guy, just one date. We went and played tennis. I'm not good at tennis. But it was fun, just a first date, nothing crazy. And afterwards, he was texting me and was like, I feel like I can tell you anything. You remind me of sunshine. And I was like, ah! I was like, ick.
Abort
I'm
mission,
like, yeah,
mission.
Sure, I am like sunshine. But like, you wouldn't know that after the first date. Like, again, like instant love. Like, I'm not saying this guy loved me, but it was just too much, too fast.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. It's like, I'm not that cool. Like, that book character's not that cool. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know.
But then, like, on the opposite side of that, for my Oz, like, going with that, I love an enemies to lovers.
Yes, me too.
I love the love triangles, the fake relationships.
Me too.
The slow burns. It's that tension that gives you, when they do come together in the end, that serotonin boost is unmatched.
Forbidden Love.
Oh.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And then, like, Fated Mates. Obviously, that one's good, too. Because then it's, like, it's not insta love, but, like, your souls were meant to be together.
But then sometimes maybe they weren't meant to be together, even if they were fated.
I know what you're
I'm looking at you, Elaine.
Yeah. I do love, though, an enemies to lovers and a love triangle. I think because, gosh, if I could have been in a love triangle growing up, like, man, just to have two people, like, want me, like, I can't even believe that Justin likes me. Like, that's crazy. So when I see, like, a love triangle, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's so fun.
Well, I just live for the tea of everything. I love, like, pop culture and learning about, like, all the different things or drama that's going on in the world. And so with the love triangle, I feel like it adds that extra little bit of, like, drama and spice to it. And you're like, oh, yes, I eat it up.
All right, this one's a fun one. Book cover, Icks and Oz.
I have a lot of opinions.
I don't think I have that many, so I'll go first. So some of my icks is when it's not cohesive. So, like, when all covers of a series are one color, and then out of the blue, they make it a different color. And it's like, why did you do that? They cannot go next to each other on the shelf anymore. I don't know what to do now. Like... Oh, that one, I hate that. Or different sizes.
Yes.
When all the books in a series are the same size, but then for some reason one is, like, super small now or super big.
Oh, absolutely.
That one's like, ugh, like, I can't do anything about it, but, like, why did you do that?
That's one of my biggest ones, too. I can't stand it. Especially the spines, when the spines are completely different, because at least, like, the book covers are kind of hidden when they're on the shelf, but you can't hide the spine. I mean, you could, but why would you want to? So, yeah, when they don't match up, oh, no.
Yeah. I also, this is random, but I don't necessarily, like, I'm never drawn towards books that are, like, huge, like, full of words on a page, and then there's, like, nothing else. Like, it's literally just, like, this is the book. Like, I don't know, like, I need more art.
Yeah.
Like, I need artistic elements. I don't love cartoon characters. Like, I'm just gonna judge how they look, and if, like, I would be attracted to the guy.
Yep.
So I don't love that. And then, too spicy of a cover. Like, I can't read this in public
Absolutely.
now. Like,
You need, like, a little book cover for that kind of thing. Yeah, it makes you, like, embarrassed to pull it out. Absolutely.
So.
A lot of mine are the same, but I'm going to expand on them a lot because I do have a lot of feelings on this. This is one of my things. I can't do caricature covers for books. They pull me out of it entirely. It looks like a kid's book to me. I know the saying goes, like, don't judge a book by its cover, and I'm sure that there are fantastic books out there with caricature covers, but I'm sorry. I will. I can't do it. I'm going to judge you, and if it has a caricature, unless you give me a true reason to pick that book up, I will not.
Or I see that everyone in the world is reading it, and I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try.
Like, maybe I'll try it, but no, I can't. I skip over them entirely. It drives me crazy. I don't like them. Also, same thing when it has people on the cover. Because it does. It takes away from your imagination of imagining what these people look like. And so when it, like, gives it to you already, you make already a judgment on that character without even knowing it. And, like, whether they're attractive or not. And it changes your connection with the character too.
It's like, for me, when I'm reading and I hear descriptions of a character, because obviously it's molded a type of way to where we're going to have an image, but for me, it's like when you're in a video game and you're making your person, and they all have blue eyes, but they're shaped differently. So, like, for me, like, they're going to have brown hair, blue eyes, but like, I'm going to shape them and, like, the face structure, like, as weird as it sounds, like, that's what I want. So absolutely. Don't, like, show me someone. Yes. Because I want to make them.
Yeah. It's like, reading is such a personal experience that when you take away that extra personal touch to it when you already put a person on there. I will say, like, my one little exception to this would be for period piece books. Because I feel like some of those can be done really well when it's like the half face of the woman or like the back of the woman in her dress kind of thing. Some of those I'm like, okay, I'll let it slide. It's still not my favorite, but I can like let it slide a little bit just because I feel like it fits the timepiece of the book. So it doesn't take it out entirely for me, but I still don't like them.
I agree.
Not my favorites. Stickers on covers.
Oh, it's so sad.
It's heart-wrenching. It's infuriating. I hate it.
You know, most of the time, too, it's like some 16-year-old boy that's like, why do I work here?
Yes! Or the ones that you can't even remove. The, like, permanent ones.
I'm looking at you, Target.
Yes! It drives me insane. Like, I know, like, Oprah and Reese Witherspoon's, like, book clubs are notorious for that. You can't remove them. But when it's, like, a bright yellow sticker on, like, a moody piece of artwork, it ruins it. And I hate it so much. Please, for the love of everything, stop doing that.
Oh, I just thought of another one real quick. When it's like a hardcover book and then it has like the paper part on top of it that can like come off, you know? Like, I just don't like that.
The dust jacket on it?
Is that what that's called? Well, I don't like that.
Interesting. See, I do.
You do?
I do.
But, like, why is it there? Just, like, print it on the hardcover. Is that impossible?
It's not, but for me with a hardcover book, I feel like you almost get, like, a second cover inside. But
I guess.
I don't like when they don't do that. So, like, my caveat with that, with the dust jackets, it's a way to give, like, I think it's, like, to help protect the book, and that's why they call it the dust jacket kind of thing. I don't know.
It's funny, because it's, like, hardcover, but no one's trying to protect the paperbacks.
Right. But it gives you, like, one cover, and, like, that's typically more, like, printed or graphic or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I read, I always take the dust.
Taking it off.
I do take the dust jacket off, but it's kind of like an Easter egg inside a lot of times because it'll have, like, an embossing kind of cover on the actual hardback itself.
Not for me.
And I love that. But when they don't have that, then I get frustrated.
Yeah.
To each their own, though.
To each their own. Some ahs. That one was not good. That one scared me. When they're aesthetics, when they all go together. So the opposite of my ick, like when the colors go well. I think Victoria Aveyard, in I think the Red Queen series is what it's called. That one has a good like gradient to it. So that one's good. I like hidden meanings on covers. Yes. Like on the hidden art.
The little like, Easter eggs.
Yes,
I love
one's
that too.
Fun. And then when there's something different, so like when there's like a gloss or a texture component, like just like, ooh, like stimulating.
Yes.
I don't know, that's fun.
Oh no, I do. My fiance gives me such a hard time when I get books in, because a lot of times I don't go to the bookstore, I'll order them. And so when they come in, I'll like feel the covers and like flip through the pages to see all the different artwork things that you can find in them. Yeah. And he looks at me like I'm so weird, because he's like, why are you petting the book? I'm like, because
Josh, you don't get it.
He doesn't. But it's so nice when a book has that, like, the different, like, the mix between like matte and embossing and like the gloss with it, because then it gives it like interest and feeling, because it's a physical book, so you're holding it versus like, you know, having it on a Kindle or something like that. So to add that like texture interest, I love that. I also love the Easter eggs. Those are fantastic on the covers, because they add a little bit of spice without you even realizing to the book. Especially when you finish it and you go back and you kind of look at the cover and you're like, oh my gosh, I see all the connections. Yeah, so this isn't a specific like awe per se to like the book covers, but kind of related. This happened to me today on Goodreads for one of the books that you added to like your TBR. I forget the name of it now, but I saw
Lost Book Club or something.
Yes,
I saw you added that on Goodreads.
I saw the cover, and with the name, it instantly drew me in.
Yeah, it was so cute.
And I don't know what it is about it, but it's like when a book cover gives you like that good vibe feeling. You don't even have to read the back of the book. You're like instant add to cart or add to TBR kind of thing.
So inviting.
It gives you that good feeling, that good vibe. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, when you see them, you're like, yep, that's definitely going to be on my list. And
it's
so
just
I
like,
love that.
you know it's for you. Like,
yes,
that's for me.
Absolutely. So always judging books by their covers. I'm sorry.
Never stopping. All right, and then kind of wrapping up, like, just reading in general, Icks. So while thinking about this, I couldn't necessarily think so much about reading, but almost more like reading community Icks, which was interesting. But so actual, like, reading in books, when chapters are too long, that, again, feels kind of like a chore. Like, I don't know why, but I just need, like, a good, like, break or a pause, like...
I like when if they are going to do long chapters, they break them up with those little, like, spacers. Because then that helps a little bit.
I agree. Sometimes, like, I feel like I'm getting neck wrinkles from reading because, like, I'm laying down. So I need to get those glasses things. Have you seen those where it's, like, a mirror or whatever so I can lay down? So that might be, like, solving my ick. And then, so those were my, like, reading icks. And then the kind of community icks. When people are so diehard for, like, fan casting. And again, I think it goes into, like, well, that's not how I'm picturing them.
Right.
But so when people are like, this is Darby. This is what Darby looks like. I'm like, that is not what Darby looks like in my head. You know? That just gives me the ick. I'm like, calm yourself. Like, I would get it maybe if the author is like, this is who I wrote it after. Then that's the only time that I'm like, okay, I'm still picturing it different, but I'll give you a pass. But so that can just be an ick.
Or, like, AI art, where a lot of people are like creating like fan arts and things like that, and if one like goes absolutely viral, I'm like, no.
And they're fun. Like, I really like seeing them and like seeing it come to life. But just when like what's the like too much sometimes, I'm like, okay, like I love that character too, but like it's not Zac Efron. Like I don't know. And then spoilers again. It's like sometimes you just can't go on like Instagram or TikTok without like something coming up, and even if it's like little or I don't know, just sometimes I just get turned off by memes and stuff because I'm so scared. I'm so scared it's going to tell me something.
Me too.
So,
I appreciate, I do follow like a few like fan art pages on Instagram, and I appreciate the ones that post like a beginning slide that's like spoilers or like slide for spoilers kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that way I know like if I've read like the caption that if for like a book that I haven't read yet, I'm gonna skip that one because obviously I don't want to know what happens.
Yeah.
So I appreciate people that do that when they can, because it does help. Because you can't avoid them all, and it is so frustrating when things get ruined.
Such an ick. Don't do that to the community.
Or just like if you're gonna do that, then give a warning for people that don't.
Some
want
of us are slow readers, and we can't get through all the books that fast.
Yep, I agree. For me, this is, again, it's like a personal thing. Annotating, I can't get into it.
Yeah,
I can't do it. It feels like homework to me. Like, I don't mind, like, taking notes, like, on, I just kind of, like, word vomit into into the notes app.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Darby gets all my notes. And so
I get to read a second book.
they are long, and I do apologize.
No, I love them. I love them.
But it's just kind of like getting my word or like my thoughts onto like paper versus or like writing versus like actually like annotating and like doing color coding for different tabs for different things. It takes you out of the story in the middle of doing that. And writing in the physical book, I could never. I just think I know
I write in my self-help books all the time, but in a fiction book, I don't think I would have that desire.
I don't judge people that do it because it's less of an ick like for other people versus like an ick for me.
It's their own personal connection with the book and reading style.
I just could never bring myself to do that. Thinking about it,
pen to paper.
No, couldn't.
Cringing.
Unpopular opinion. I don't like reading in bed.
Oh, I do like reading in bed. Why? Where do you read?
I read on the couch mostly.
I do that too.
I just have the bed. I've like trained myself as like for sleeping.
Well, that's good. I think science says that don't hang out in your bed, so that's good.
So I tried not to and so I hang out in my bedroom like in the morning when I'm waking up slow or like at night when I'm winding down. I still watch TikTok and everything, but I'm not that crazy. But I try to keep it to where like it's just for like relaxing sleeping, and reading for me is not relaxing per se, depending on the book that you're reading. And so, I just have a hard time getting comfortable. Like you said, the neck thing too, it's too uncomfortable for me versus like sitting on the couch. I can still be like lounging and cozy, but like in a better position to like read my book.
Now when I read in bed, I have to read on Justin's side of the bed because I end up making my spot too warm. So then when I do go to sleep, I'm like, oh, I'm so hot. Yep. But Justin typically runs cold, and so I always lay down in his spot. And then when he comes to bed, I'm like, all right, warmed it up for you. And then I go to my like ice cold side of the bed, and I'm like, wow, this is so great.
That's so cute. You're like this little space heater.
I am, literally.
That's funny. Another ick for me are fiction audiobooks. Again, I do not there are some icks that I'm low-key gonna judge people for. A lot of these that I'm talking about, I don't. Like if you read audiobooks, I think audiobooks are great, and that's a great way to read. For me personally, I can only do an audiobook for nonfiction.
Yeah. It's gotta be a good actor like reading it.
Yeah, and for me a lot of times it's kind of like the same thing with having a person on the cover, like hearing the way that people say things or the inflections that they add would be different than if I was reading it myself. It's a different voice, and especially when it's like one narrator throughout the whole story and having to do like male voices. Oh no, I can't handle it. Or even like the ones on like, I know it pops up on like Book Talk a lot, of like the super rough male voices doing all these. I can't. I have to skip every time. I can't do it. I hate it.
I think that's also like you're being so immersed in it, and like having like a guy say something to you. Like, I'm scared.
It's all for fiction. If you say it in person, then it becomes real life, and I don't want it.
Yeah, I'm like, ew, don't talk to me. Yeah, but they're not. It's in the book. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I can't. I can't do it. I don't like it. One thing I do judge people for, 100% my ick, the people that fold their books like over like a notebook kind of thing, and so they're just like holding it as like one page.
I used to do that when I was a kid, but now I don't do that.
Oh no, when I see that it hurts my heart for those books. I'm like, no, why would you do that? How is that even comfortable to start off with? Because the way that the book is designed, it's not like it has like a spine like a notebook for it to go
like
around.
Like ones,
Exactly. I'm like,
is it actually helping?
Nope, don't like it. I also don't like when this is kind of like becoming more popular. Adults have started taking over the YA genre. I think that like the young adult genre can be for everybody. Like anybody can read it no matter what your age is. You don't have it can't just be for like, middle school, high schoolers. Anybody can enjoy them, but they're not written for adults. And so you have to go in knowing that. And so when adults get frustrated because there isn't enough adult content in a young adult novel, then I think that just takes away from it, and that's not the point, because this book wasn't for you. You should you can enjoy the book for what it is, and there's plenty of young adult novels out there that are so well written and don't need the adult content in order for adults to enjoy them. But it's like adults are trying to take over, especially with the spice is the biggest thing, where it's like infiltrating everything, and it's not needed, and it's not meant for that age like gap. Like
Shakespeare would be so disappointed.
Yeah, it's so frustrating for me to see that, and especially because like publishing is an industry, and so people start catering more towards that, but then you take away options for people that aren't into that. And
like you have your own genre. Like there's plenty of books in the sea. They don't all have to be the same type.
Right. And it's not to say that like if a parent's approve their kids of reading spicy content, then like more power to them. That's like their choice, but there should still be options for kids at that age that don't have that. And so when you start like infiltrating what's meant to be their market, I think that's just wrong, and that gives me the ick. I don't like it.
Yeah, because young adult is like high school age, I get that.
But what are some of your awes?
Oh, the final one. That one was much better than the last awe. We're not going to talk about the other one. Kind of like simple, but just like a feeling that a book can make me feel, whether that's love, heartbreak. Like books are so powerful. So just like when a book has truly like made me feel, because you can definitely read a book and like not be in it, but when I'm in a book and I'm really just like, oh, I'm feeling all the feels. And awe is the community I get to feel a part of. Like there are so many fun friends that read and have so many differing opinions. Like all of my icks could be a person's awes, and that is so cool. Like wow, like we're so different, but like we love reading. Like absolutely. I don't know. So
I love learning about other people, even if it's like a book that I thoroughly enjoy. It's like one of my awes too is like reading differing opinions on it, because somebody could absolutely like hate the Sarah J. Maas series, but I still enjoy like listening to them, because sometimes you become so immersed in like your love for it that you miss out on really like valid points that other people make, that because like love is blind kind of thing. No, I totally agree.
Yeah. And the fact that a lot of the book characters, they're my friends. Like I'm reading these books and I'm so immersed in them that that's my found family. Like they're my friends. I like them and I like hanging out with them, and so I don't know. I really do. I feel so hard that like if they were real, like I would be there. Well, some people I'm like, you're too cool for me. But in the book I'm like, oh, we would be friends. Like, you're so fun.
You create such that personal connection to all of them, especially through, like, a series.
I've been through it all with you.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For me, like, I love a creative, like, divider for chapters. So kind of, like, in the physical realm of random things that I love about reading, when it's not just, like, a simple line or, like, a blank space to, like, separate between, like, the difference in time or a POV within the same chapter. Yeah. I love when they're little, like, intricate, creative ones, whether it's, like, a dagger or, like, an ocean wave or something that's, like, related. It's one of the first things that, like, I flip through a new book for to see if they have anything, like, fun about that. I love those. Yeah. Another thing I absolutely love, again, on the physical side of books, are maps.
When you see a maps in a book, you know it's going to be a good book.
It could be the worst book in the world, and I'll still appreciate that map. Yeah. I am a sucker for maps. I love them. It helps me visualize in the grand scheme of things where things are spatially, especially when they get more intricate and detailed, and it gives you more of like that feeling of the world for it. Oh,
have you ever seen those TikToks where it's like, make a map with me, and they take like rice and like throw it on a paper, and then they trace out like where like the rice or the like little blobs are, and then that's how they make the map.
Now I know what I'm doing after we finish recording this episode. You're gonna make a map. I love maps.
They're really fun.
I also love branching out and trying new books that I normally wouldn't gravitate towards. I think it's really important because as much as I love fantasy and I live for like fantasy books, I know I'm going to enjoy a lot of fantasy, but there might be a different genre that, like a science fiction or maybe even like a self-help book that I wouldn't normally try because it's not within like my normal wheelhouse, but I might really, really love it in the end. Yeah. And so I love like throwing in random ones and branching out. And even if I don't think I'm going to enjoy it as much, like I'm not a horror person or like scary movies are not my thing. Yeah. But I read a book, I forget the name of it, but it's like of Salt and Sorrows or something. I don't remember specifically. Don't hold me to that. I thought it was going to be one thing, and it ended up being more horror-esque, not full dive, but still kind of scary book. And even though it still wasn't my cup of tea, I appreciated it, and I did enjoy seeing it change perspective in that way, how it started off more as your typical fantasy and then kind of moved into these deeper, darker themes. And the way that the author did it, I thought was very intriguing.
Yeah, I do. I really like book club for that because I could so get lost. There's so many good books in, like, the different genres, and because I love fantasy, like, I could spend my life there. So it's good to be, like, pulled out of that because there are so many other good books and other genres that I, like, forget about it because I'm just, like, thinking about, like, what I usually do.
Well, because there are so many books, it's so easy to get lost just, like, within your comfort zone. Yeah. So it's nice, to have, like, the book club to kind of branch out a little bit, or to just every once in a while just throw in a random one that you just never know. And you might end up hating it, but you won't know until you try it. Yeah. And maybe if you do love it, then it, like, gives you a new avenue of books to explore. Yeah. And so I enjoy that about reading.
Those are good. Wow. Our icks and ahs. I'm sure more will be added to the list in our lifetime.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are our current icks and ahs.
Let us know your icks and ahs.
Yes.
Reach out to us on Instagram at Lazy Girl Library, our website, lazygirllibrary.com. We want to know what you guys like and don't like, too.
And it's fine if you come after me for the found family thing.
Okay. I'm sure we both have very controversial opinions for these. Like, we're not reading in bed, I know, is a big one for me. Yeah, that one's a bit weird.
I'm just kidding. But we're getting close to wrapping up, so I just want to throw out our book club book again. So that's going to be our next episode. We're reading 1,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. So here's the book description. Marguerite Kane's physicist parents are known for their groundbreaking achievements. Their most astonishing invention, called the Firebird, allows users to jump into multiple universes and promises to revolutionize science forever. But then Marguerite's father is murdered, and the killer, her parents' handsome, enigmatic assistant Paul, escapes into another dimension before the law can touch him. Marguerite refuses to let the man who destroyed her family go free, so she races after Paul through different universes, always leaping into another version of herself. But she also meets alternate versions of the people she knows, including Paul, whose life entangles with hers in increasingly familiar ways. Before long, she begins to question Paul's guilt, as well as her own heart, and soon she discovers the truth behind her father's death is far more sinister than she expected.
Ooh. I'm so excited to read this one.
I'm really excited too, because I do forget a lot of it, but I do remember parts that made me giddy, so I'm excited.
I'll be curious to hear your perspective, going back and rereading the book, and especially with my new eyes on the book too, and reading it for the first time. That'll make for an interesting discussion.
I think so, and because I think I read this in high school, and in high school I gave 5 stars to every book, so my Goodreads is a little skewed because I just any kind of book that I was oh yeah, I kind of like that, 5 stars. So I'm wondering if it really deserved 5 stars. It'll be fun to re-rate it and stuff. Yeah,
I'm excited. It'll be good. But speaking of books that we're going to be reading, we're going to get into our borrows and returns.
Yes, let's do it.
So, Darby, what are you reading? What are you borrowing? What are you returning?
Well, the same. No, slightly different. I'm still getting through House of Flame and Shadow. I'm really trying to finish it.
It's a brick.
This weekend. Yeah, it's a big boy. But it's really good. And then again, my back burner book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Returns, of course, our last book club book, The Worst Best Man by Lucy Score. Don't need to talk about that one much more. But then another book that I didn't get a chance to mention before, but I just listened to this past week, was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. She's the same author that wrote the Icebreaker novel that's really popular. So I listened to it on audiobook, and it was pretty good. Just I think I wanted to listen to it because I figured it would be a better romance than the Lucy Score book we just read.
Yeah.
So it was good, but talking about audiobooks, I did not like the speakers.
Oh, yeah.
It made me cringe a little, but I did still like it.
Yeah.
I gave it 3 stars, which for me, my rating, 5 stars, perfect. Couldn't touch it. It's so good. 4 stars, that's a great book. I like that. 3 stars, it's a solid book, but definitely not my favorite. 2 stars, 1 star, please don't ever put this book in front of my face again.
Yep.
So, it was a good book.
Yeah.
Not great. It was good.
I'd say I'll do my ratings too. So just so
Yeah.
everybody knows what we're going through. For me, like a 5 stars is, yeah, like you said, absolutely perfect. Loved it in every single way. I'm pretty generous with my 5 stars too. If I left the book feeling really good about it, then it's gonna be like 5 stars for me.
Yeah.
4 stars, thoroughly enjoyed it. 3 stars, it has its pros and cons, but overall decent. 2 stars, not my cup of tea. 1 star, hated it, if I even finished it.
Yes,
honestly. Yeah. So, yeah. As far as my borrows, I'm still on House of Sky and Breath. I haven't had a chance to read it since the last episode, just because adulting's hard and life
and we're lazy.
takes
Sometimes
over.
I just gotta rot and not use my mind to do anything.
Well, it's not even, for me at least personally, for this specific book. I want to read it, and I want to get more into it. It's just the timing of life hasn't been on my side as far as reading is concerned. Other things have taken priority. But I am really hoping that I can start reading this more, because so far it's been so good.
So good.
For my returns, I read 10% Happier by Dan Harris, which was the mindfulness kind of book.
Yeah.
I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was okay. There are definitely things I liked and things that I didn't. It's supposed to be kind of like a self-help with mindfulness, but it's through like the author's journey of finding meditation and being mindful. So like a memoir-esque kind of self-help book. I enjoyed some of his stories that he told, and you can definitely see like where he is like finding his way through mindfulness, and like where he is like enjoying some parts of it, and then other parts he thinks are just like BS, doesn't like it. It's too like spiritual mumbo jumbo kind of thing for him.
Yeah.
There are other stories that he tells where I'm like, it's more memoir and like, why is this relevant to what we're supposed to be talking about kind of thing. Like, I'm sorry, I really don't care too much about your life right now. I'm looking for like how you found like meditation to be helpful. He really focuses too on like research that found then like why meditation and mindfulness is so helpful and beneficial in your life.
I do like when research like backs up points like that.
Me too. And so that was really interesting to learn, and like all the different benefits from it. I just wish that he got a little bit more into like how to be mindful, or how he is like meditates kind of thing. He does a little bit, he touches on it. It's more one of those books though that you have to like pick bits and pieces out of the stories to put together into your own like interpretation of it, then like, this is how I meditate, and he like walks you through it like a normal self-help book would. So it was good. I enjoyed it. It's definitely interesting, but there are definitely parts for that I didn't necessarily enjoy about it too.
Would you recommend it to people?
Yeah, I think it was good. I think it's the best in audio. I wouldn't waste your time with like a physical book, so that way you can skip through some of it. Well, I guess you could do that with a physical book too. You can just kind of skim through it. So either way, I would just be cautious going into it that you probably will want to like skip through some things. But for some of the other stuff that he talks about and like the journey and the research, I think was really interesting and fascinating to me. So I would recommend it for that sense.
Yeah. I would recommend the one I read too, the wildfire one. But only if you're like wanting like a good like camp romance vibes. Like, I never got to go to camp growing up, so I think I just like that.
Romanticizing that for you.
Yeah. But there were parts that made me like feel giddy, and then other parts I was like cringing, skipping.
Especially for audiobook, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. End of another episode. Look at us.
Look at us. Now we're going to eat Chipotle. We hope that you enjoy some good food today. And we hope that you only have ahs this week. No icks.
I love that. What a great note to end on.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Well, dear listeners, we find ourselves at the end of another episode. And remember, the Lazy Girl Library is not just a podcast. It's a community. We absolutely love hearing from fellow book lovers, so don't forget to share your thoughts and your favorite reads with us on our social media. You can find us on Instagram at Lazy Girl Library. Make sure to check out our website, lazygirllibrary.com, your one-stop shop for all things Lazy Girl. Before we go, we want to take a moment to thank all of our wonderful listeners. Whether you're listening from your cozy bed, on your way to work, or anywhere in between, Thank you for making us a part of your day and for being a part of our Lazy Girl family. So keep those pages turning, keep those imaginations flourishing, and remember, the best stories are yet to be discovered. Until next time, stay lazy and happy reading.